The sun was sinking low over the frontier town, painting the dusty main street in streaks of fire and gold. The rancher walked slowly, his boots heavy from a day that should have been remembered as heroic. Hours earlier, he had thrown himself into danger to save a young girl from the clutches of two wandering outlaws. He had faced them with nothing but his fists, his grit, and the stubborn courage that came from years of hard work on unforgiving land. When the girl screamed, it was he who answered. When the knives came out, it was he who stood unflinching. And when the dust cleared, it was he who carried her trembling body back to town. He thought he had done right. He thought people would see the truth. But the crowd that gathered in front of the saloon had other ideas. Whispers, first faint, turned sharp like blades. A man spat on the ground near his feet, calling him a liar. Another shouted that no decent man would be found alone with a young girl. The rancher's jaw tightened, his knuckles white, but he said nothing. He knew words wouldn't matter. The wealthy merchant who ruled this town with bribes and fear had already twisted the story, claiming the rancher staged the rescue to hide wicked intentions. Her silence became his condemnation. Laughter rose around him, cruel and biting. Someone shoved him from behind, and he stumbled into the dirt. His shirt, still stained with blood from the fight, clung to his back. In that moment, the rancher realized he stood utterly alone. He was a stranger in a land that had no mercy for the honest. The humiliation was complete when the merchant himself stepped out onto the saloon balcony. With a smile that cut like a knife, he called the rancher a disgrace, a danger to women, a man who should crawl back to whatever hole he came from. The crowd cheered. The rancher's heart pounded, but his face remained stone. He would not give them the pleasure of seeing his rage. With slow, measured steps, he turned and walked away. Dust clung to his boots as he left the jeering voices behind. He had saved a life, but lost his honor, and that wound cut deeper than any outlaw's knife. The lantern flickered against the wooden walls, and the memory of the crowd's laughter echoed in his mind. She was just a child caught in the jaws of powerful men, but the weight of injustice pressed on him until his chest felt heavy enough to break. Tomorrow, he told himself, he would leave this cursed town. He would ride out before dawn and never look back. Yet somewhere deep inside, he knew fate was not finished with him. Morning came with the sound of church bells echoing faintly across the valley. He packed his saddlebag in silence, every movement slow and deliberate. The old leather creaked as he buckled it shut, and his horse, a weathered chestnut gelding, flicked its ears as if sensing his master's burden. The rancher tightened the cinch, mounted, and rode toward town one last time, not to seek justice, but to buy supplies for the road that would carry him far away. As he entered the street, people stopped to stare. Some whispered, some laughed outright. Women pulled their children close, as though his shadow alone might stain them. Each gaze felt like a lash, each whisper another stone on his back. He had saved a girl, yet the world painted him as a villain. And worse still, no one dared speak in his defense. Near the blacksmith's shop, a group of men leaned against the wall, their faces smug. Well, he sneered, if it ain't the hero himself. Tell me, rancher, savin' maidens your new trade? Or was it just practice for darker deeds? The men laughed. The rancher's hand brushed the butt of his revolver, but he forced it away. Killing a fool would prove them right. Instead, he dismounted quietly, tied his horse, and walked past them without a word. Silence was his last shield. Inside the general store, the keeper hesitated before serving him, his hands trembling. I don't want no trouble, the man stammered. The rancher's voice was low, steady, but there was steel in it. I came for supplies, that's all. Still, every movement of the storekeeper's eyes screamed fear. When the rancher placed coins on the counter, the man picked them up as though they were cursed. Leaving town, the rancher could feel the stares on his back. His shoulders, broad and scarred, bore them without bending, but deep down his spirit cracked. But now he wondered, had it been worth it? Was there any place left in the world for men who chose honor over power? Wine carried dust across the road, and the land stretched endless and empty before him. Yet in his silence, a storm brewed. He thought of the girl, her silence, her fear. He thought of the merchant's smirk, the sheriff's cowardice, the crowd's laughter. Every memory hardened something inside him. He would leave, yes, but he carried with him a wound that no distance could heal. And far behind him, unseen, whispers began to spread. Not all believed the lies. Not all were blind to the truth. Somewhere, voices rose in secret, voices that would soon ride in numbers. The rancher could never imagine. The night after his departure from town was colder than most. The rancher made camp under a cluster of cottonwoods by the river. His horse tethered nearby, the firelight flickering against his weathered face. He chewed on hard bread without taste, staring into the flames as if they could burn away the memory of the day. But the laughter, the spit, the pointed fingers, they clung to him like smoke that would never wash out. He replayed the moment again and again, the girl trembling in his arms, the outlaws sprawled in the dirt, and then the crowd turning their eyes from gratitude to suspicion. How quickly honor became shame in the mouths of liars. But never had he fought a whole town, and never had he felt so small. At dawn, he rose from his blanket, weary but unwilling to linger. He saddled his horse and pushed farther into the plains. The horizon stretched wide and merciless, the kind of land that could swallow a man whole and never give him back. By midday, he stopped at a watering hole. To passing riders appeared, strangers with hard eyes. They looked him over, then spat into the dust. "Heard about you," one muttered. "Town says you ain't no savior. They say you're filth." The rancher met their gaze but said nothing. His silence only seemed to amuse them. They rode off laughing, leaving behind words that cut deeper than any knife. That evening, he reached a ridge overlooking the valley. From there, he could see the faint glow of the town's lamps, scattered like fallen stars. He wanted to turn back, to shout the truth into every ear until they could no longer deny it. But what good would it do? The merchant's gold had already bought their ears, their eyes, their souls. So he turned his horse and rode away. Yet in his heart, something shifted. The humiliation that had crushed him now began to smolder into something else, something harder, sharper. He was a man stripped of honor, but not of strength. And though he did not know it yet, the rancher disappeared into the night, a shadow swallowed by the wilderness. But destiny had not finished with him. Tomorrow, the rancher rode deeper into the wilderness until the lights of the town were swallowed by distance. The prairie opened before him, endless grass swaying under a cold wind, stars wheeling silently above. He stopped near an abandoned line shack, its roof half collapsed, and decided it would serve as shelter. Inside, dust lay thick on the floorboards, and the scent of old wood and rust hung heavy. He laid out his blanket, but sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the laughter again, the jeers, the names, the venom dripping from the merchant's mouth. His fists clenched around nothing. He thought of the girl, her silence still haunting him like a wound that wouldn't close. Could she have spoken? Could she have told the truth? Perhaps. But fear ruled her, and fear was a prison stronger than chains. The rancher understood, yet the sting remained. By midnight, he rose and stepped outside. The plains stretched dark and wide, moonlight silvering the land. His horse nickered softly, ears pricked toward the distance. "Tomorrow, boy, we ride far. We leave it all behind." But even as he said it, his voice cracked. The night dragged on. He sharpened his knife, checked the revolver he rarely used, and stared at the fire until it died into embers. Each small act was less about need and more about distraction, as though keeping his hands busy could quiet the storm inside. Still, the memories burned hotter, the sheriff turning his back, the crowd spitting on him, the merchant's mocking grin. When dawn finally bled across the horizon, the rancher saddled up with weary determination. He was leaving, yes, but something inside him whispered that he was riding not away from his shame but toward something else, something unseen. A few townsfolk spoke in hushed voices, recalling the truth of that night, doubting the lies they had swallowed too quickly. And though the rancher could not hear them, those whispers were growing. The day would come sooner than he imagined when silence would break, when truth would ride louder than lies. But for now, he was only a lone rider on a lonely road, carrying humiliation on his shoulders, unaware that destiny had already begun to change its course.